On today's episode of the NBA Big Board Podcast, myself, James, and Leif, we are going to give you a discussion about the California Classic Summer League beginning July 6th. We are going to go over some of the rosters, some of the names that are not going to be there, and some of the guys that we are looking forward to seeing. Stay tuned. Again, thanks for making Locked On NBA Big Boy your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. As playoffs wind down, the sports stop sporting like we want them to. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit fanduel.com/locked-on to get started. All right. So before we talked about our sponsor, we are mentioning the California Classic, which will begin this Saturday, July 6th. A couple omissions, but this is like I guess you could say this is the warm up to the really big event. Well, one of the warm ups, we have an event in Utah, the Salt Lake City Classic. That I believe starts on July the 8th. Catch a Leaf out there, and then
I'll be there.
You'll be there, and then the I guess you could say the main event, July 12th, the Las Vegas Summer Classic. So, but first we're gonna go over just a couple rosters here. I want to quickly mention the teams that will be participating in the California Classic. You got your Charlotte Hornets, your Golden State Warriors, your Los Angeles Lakers, the Miami Heat, the Sacramento Kings, and the San Antonio Spurs. So today is Monday, July 1st. So these rosters are very, very fluid. And as we did some preparation for today's episode, we found out that of the Charlotte Hornets, T-John Salon will not be playing in the California Classic. He had a minor injury, I guess, warming up for the draft, and they are going to hold him out until the Las Vegas Summer Classic, which will begin on the 12th. The Hornets' other draft pick from this season, KJ Simpson, he is out for the entirety of the Summer League. That's a bummer. I was kind of looking forward to seeing him play. Seeing how he adjusted, he's a dynamic point guard. I thought he'd look good in this setting. So that means you get a lot of Amari Bailey, a lot of Nick Smith. I believe Leaky Black was on the roster as well. So those are the names actually from last year's draft. And I think this is my personal opinion, but second year guys, you've played in the NBA. In some cases, you played the whole 82, or you spent half the season in the G League. But you like to see a jump from your second year guys because they are used to the setting. And sometimes, even in general, summer league is going to cause overreactions, especially for the rookies. A lot of them are going to be bad, and it might even be compounded even more because people think that this draft class was terrible. But just for the sake of just like clarity, like first year guys tend to struggle. And if they do get off to a hot start, it's still just summer league. Second year guys, you kind of still want to see like, okay, this is where you make your mark. Can I crack the rotation for this team or another team? So really quick, how were you feeling about Nick Smith last year going into the draft? And did you get any opportunity to see him play this year for the Hornets?
I was pretty low on Nick Smith last year. I think I had him in the 20s. I just don't like that he was so reliant on floaters to score, and he wasn't putting pressure on the basket. And his jump shot, although fluid, wasn't super productive at Arkansas, in and out of the lineup with knee injuries. I didn't see it. I did see him warm up in Utah. I don't think he played in the game, but I saw him up close and shooting in Utah. And during warm-ups before the Jazz and Hornets played. I think he and Amari Bailey are going to have a little bit of an internal competition of who can shoot more, and sometimes in a good way, sometimes in a bad way, because both those guys want to elevate their playing time, want to get more more attention from the Hornets and say, hey, we belong here, because frankly, that backcourt has a bit of talent at the top end, but there's not much depth, and there's been injuries the last few years. So I think there is playing time to be had. And so this is a little bit of an exhibition for those two to show off what they're made of.
Yeah, I agree. This is going to be interesting, in particular for Amari Bailey. I believe that he was on a second round pick contract last year. So I don't think he has a contract. They brought in Trey Mann last year. I don't know if Reggie Jackson is going to stay. I know he was recently traded to the Hornets. And KJ Simpson likely is going to compete for second string, third string minutes. So, yeah, it's going to be tough. And this is, I guess, an opportunity where if I'm Amari Bailey, I don't want to do too much. I want to do something that's going to get me on the team. Like, you don't want to go out there and it's funny. I remember Josh Christopher last year. Like, he was just doing way too much.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, you want to do what's going to translate to get you minutes or to get you into the rotation. So he's going to have to play with a lot. And he does play with a lot of energy, but play with a lot of energy, defend, and make shots, because the Hornets just added guys. And you got to think, even last year, a lot of those minutes were there because LaMelo was out and they traded Terry Rozier at some point. So it'll be interesting to see how those two look in this particular setting. And then also, they're going to be in Las Vegas too. So if you're not playing for your current team, you're also playing for everybody who's there. Let's go over the Golden State Warriors Summer League roster. And this is where it gets tough. You have to think Podziemski will probably be there. Maybe not in the California Classic, but they'll probably abbreviate his minutes or his opportunities for sure in Las Vegas, because he's definitely a rotation guy. Tracy or Trace? I always want to call him
Trace Jackson Davis.
He'll be there.
They'll probably. I've got a long list for the Warriors, but I don't know how many of these. They got Reese Beekman on a two-way this year.
Yes.
Guy Santos played a bit last year. He's the 55th pick last season. Santiago Vescovi, Marquise Bolden. Bolden was formerly of Duke, played in the G League last year, a little bit in the NBA, but mostly in the G League.
Mm-hmm.
Vescovi was on Tennessee. A couple players that, unless you're a very hardcore basketball fan, Jackson Rowe, Daquan Plowden, Christian Terrell, Ethan Thompson, a few players that are foreigners, and then Yuri Collins. He played at St. Louis, was an assist machine the last few years in college basketball. And then Pat Spencer, older brother of Cam Spencer, who was very good in the G League, got a little bit of playing time in the NBA last year, and that appears to be what their lineup's going to be for the California Classic.
Yeah, just confirming though, Podziemski is on the roster for the California Classic. It'll be interesting again to see how much he plays. Because like I said, you got to think that he's going to factor into their rotation. You probably have him playing some point guard minutes just to see if he could occupy that role. I know they did just recently sign Anthony Melton. So who stands out to you on this Golden State Warriors Summer League roster?
This is going to be a pretty easy answer for me. I went a few years ago and watched Desmond Bane, and before his second year, you're like, why is he playing? He's already proven good as a two guard. Well, anyway, they played him as the point guard and just had him orchestrate everything, score at will. And you kind of saw like, oh, this guy's way too good to be here. Not just a little too good. I'm wondering if Brandon Podziemski has that moment where he's like, yeah, I was kind of a jack of all trades, 9, 4, and 5 type of stats. Well, I want to see in those games him just look like the coolest, most composed, best player out there by a mile. And I think the Warriors are going to try to have him have the ball in his hands, score, make others look better, make all the intangible plays he makes. That's what I'll be looking for. And then I think Reese Beekman and Yuri Collins will be fun to watch because both of them are very different guards, but both set the table very nicely as point guards. And I think Reese Beekman's got a real chance of making the roster.
Yeah, I agree. Like I said, with Podziemski, you just gotta you want him to look like the best player out there, and ultimately you want him to play one game in California, maybe 2 games in Vegas, and then you want him to be done because it just reminds me of the year Lonzo's rookie year, and Magic Johnson was in charge. And Brandon Ingram was way too good for the summer league. That was his second year. And there's the gift for him, Magic Johnson doing this, sit him down, shut him down. I think Brandon Ingram like turned his ankle. So you don't want to see Podziemski turn his ankle, but you definitely want to see him like dominate. And dominate doesn't mean he goes out there and scores 25, 30. You just go out there and dominate. Show me that you can be our backup point guard when Steph sits down. All right, we're going to get into the next couple teams, but first we need to take a quick break. So again, this episode is definitely brought to you by FanDuel. So let me tell you something. I love sports. I love them so much. I never want them to stop. And this is actually very, very true. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games, and the sports aren't sportsing like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com/lockedon and start making the most of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. So before we get back into previewing these teams, I just have one question for you. Really quick. So, are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every single day. All right, so before we took that break, we talked about the Hornets Summer League roster and also the Golden State Warriors Summer League roster. Next up, we have probably the most highly anticipated roster. I mean, they travel well every year, but we have the Los Angeles Lakers, and also we have the Miami Heat. But let's first talk about the Lakers, and I need to double check and see if Bronny is playing in California, in the California Classic.
Yeah, Bronny, it looks like he is. It looks like he and Connect are playing.
Okay.
From my research. Obviously, it hasn't been fully announced. The full roster is not quite there, but right now it says Dalton Connect, Bronny James, Armel Traore, Blake Hinson, Mohamed Diarra, Sean East, Jordan Nichols, and Quincy Olivari. That's what I've got for the California Classic. Obviously, the headlines are going to go to Bronny. I'm very curious to see the role Dalton Connect plays. I know we've talked about him and the role he'll play on an NBA team. Well, the Summer League, I want to see him play just like he played at Tennessee. Have the ball in hand, come off pin down, shoot, score. Show that you're older, but it doesn't impact you with better athletes than you played against. Show that you're a good defender against this level. Maybe not at the NBA where you're going to be hunted on a team that has aspirations to win. But show the athleticism, show the scoring ability, and leave no doubts. Like you're going to be annoyed that you fell to 17. Well, show that you're better than 17 right there. I always like to see when the rookies that seem to have a chip on their shoulder for one reason or another put forth impressive displays. Like a guy that I remember in recent years was Jaden Hardy. Jaden Hardy fell to 37th and immediately put on a display. And there's people saying, oh, the Mavs got a steal. And I liked him a lot that draft. So I was very intently watching him being like, okay, can I see? Maybe I'm right. Maybe I'm wrong. And it felt like he had this like, hey, I need to show what I'm about. I'm going to put the ball in the basket, and there's no one here that's good enough to stop me. And I want to see Dalton Connect have that. Bronny obviously is going to take the headlines. And I think it'll be interesting to see how well he plays. You know, I think one narrative that's not being spoken about enough about him is he recovered from cardiac issues, like serious life-altering, potentially cardiac issues. I wonder if he's getting more comfortable being on a basketball court. And I want to see with that comfort how well he can play. And now the whole search of, oh, is he going to go to the Lakers? That's all over. Maybe he just can settle in and have a better display than I think a lot of people are already kind of having a negative view of what's going to happen. So I want to see connect. That's the first thing I'm looking for. But I'm curious to see how Bronny James plays, maybe in a point guard role, maybe in an off-ball role, because he's going to have a lot of pressure on him, but I think there's going to be less pressure than he's played with for the last few months.
Yeah, man, that's going to be interesting because they are going to draw the Sacramento Kings on the opening night of the California Classic on Saturday, and he may end up getting Devin Carter, right? And I don't know if they're going to play him at point guard, but I don't know if I want to see Devin Carter if I'm trying to figure out if I can play point guard at the next level, because you got to think Devin Carter is going to try to make Bronny's life hell, right? And then the Kings, I mean, we're kind of jumping around, but the Kings also signed one of our favorite guys, Isaiah Crawford. So like that's going to be tough to open up against. And there's going to be unfair pressure. There's always going to be unfair pressure on Bronny, but it's going to be magnified even on this California Classic Summer League, because if he doesn't look good, then everybody's going to say it was this and that. And if he does look good, then there's going to be expectations of, okay, can he do this and can he do that? And again, it's the Summer League, whether it's Bronny, whether it's Devin Carter, whether it's any of these guys. Most of the time, they look bad because this is the first time you played basketball. There's little practice times. The first time you played like real full court 5-on-5 since the college season ended. So it'd be interesting to see what Bronny looks like. I got a name for you for that Lakers roster, though. Sean East can play.
He's a good player. I liked him at Missouri a lot.
Yeah, he can play. And I don't think he's going to make that team just because, it's going to be hard to make the Lakers team, but he can play. And if I'm Bronny, I'm like, hey, man, I need you to handle the ball. I'm going to play off the ball because let's just make this like easier for both of us. But Sean East, he can go. I really like his game. It's interesting to see that they don't have Hood Schifino on the roster so far. Maybe they're saving him for Vegas. But, yeah, we will see about that. He's another person that although he's young, I think you are looking forward to him, whether it be in Vegas or the California Classic. He needs to have a really good showing because he didn't crack the rotation this last year. He didn't play well when he did get in, and you want to see if he can make like a jump, something, see if he can crack the rotation, especially if they end up trading D'Angelo Russell. Have you had a chance to look at that Heat Summer League roster?
Yeah, I got that here for you as well.
Okay.
So it's Kel'el Ware, who is the 15th pick, Pelle Larsson, who is the 44th pick. I've seen Pelle Larsson play a lot because he played at Utah and Arizona. Kashad Johnson, also from Arizona. Zion Pullen, whom I met at the NBA Combine. He didn't play, but he was there doing some team workouts. Went to Florida.
Right? Yep.
Yeah, and he was all-conference guard. Isaiah Stevens, who is an all-conference guard in the Mountain West. Bryson Warren, I believe he's from Texas Tech, as is Warren Washington from Texas Tech. Bryson Warren is from the Sioux Falls Skyforce team, and he's with the Heat here. So obviously the attention is going to be put on Kel'el Ware. I have mixed feelings about how he'll do in the summer league. I think athletically, and he'll have the chance to put the ball up, shoot the ball, and that is beneficial to a guy like Kel'el Ware. Needs confidence, but I also think the way he pans out, if he pans out in the NBA, is because Spoelstra has this culture and taps into that talent, and then also puts forth this work ethic. I don't think you'll be able to determine how successful he'll be because it's never been a talent issue for Kel'el Ware right off in the summer league. So I think it's interesting. And the last thing is Nikola Jurisic was on this roster. They traded the one pick back for Pelle Larsson. I'm very curious to see how he performs because he's got the athletic tools to be a good defender. I've watched him numerous times. I feel like he's got more athletic tools than he has incorporated into his actual game. He's a really solid shooter in terms of form, but his results leave you something to be desired, especially at the rim. Like he gets to the rim easily, comes off pin down, is not a very good finisher, but he's a really good athlete. And you wonder if he's one of those guys that the Heat can turn into a very good athlete, into a defender, and then the shot comes around. And maybe he's got the athletic prototype to be, archetype to be successful for the Heat down the road. But I mean, I alluded to it. I thought that Jurisic was the pick there momentarily, and I was like, wow, what a steal. He goes to the Heat. So he's going to be a guy that I have pressure on in terms of my own personal evaluation, because I think if Jurisic ended up with the Heat, they'd have an unbelievable fit.
I got a name for you in that Heat roster who I'm a big fan of, and I think he's going to either he's going to be a high-level European point guard or he's going to like play really well, and that's I like Isaiah Stevens out of Colorado State, and they might have the best like balance as far as like at least of the teams that we've mentioned so far. You got a point guard, playmaking point guard. Zion Pullen's a combo; he can shoot. You got a big, and then Pelly Larson, we know he can shoot. They're gonna. I mean, Miami feels like I feel like they always have a good like summer league team, but like they're gonna be like really really tough. And it's only one. Well, yeah, really one guy with a guaranteed deal, and yeah, they're gonna be tough. But I like Isaiah Stevens. I liked him. I didn't think he was going to get drafted coming out of Colorado State just because he's smaller, but he just seems like a guy that will find his way. He may have a chance to find his way as a third point guard at some point in his career, but if not, he's going to play extremely well in Europe. He's about 6 foot, can shoot, crafty. He's just not a great athlete and he's small, but I like him a lot.
Yeah, I like he and Pullen for different reasons. Isaiah Stevens is like I'm not going to get you the shot necessarily myself, but I'm going to get into the perfect position to create a shot for my teammate type of point guard. Zion Pullen's almost the opposite. He's going to get in great spots, have a great assist to turnover, create instant offense for himself, and then if he attracts a lot of attention, knows when to pass the ball. He and Walter Clayton formed one of my favorite backcourts in college basketball, Florida, this past year. And like I said, I interacted with him. Very nice guy. He talked about how that team grew together, and I'm rooting for him.
Yeah, man, I like him. All right, so we're gonna take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll talk about the Kings and the Spurs and one surprise team. I don't even know if Leif knows about it, but I'm gonna put Leif on. Stay tuned. All right, so in the last segment, we kind of hinted at the Kings Summer League roster. We did mention Devin Carter. We mentioned our favorite guy, Isaiah Crawford. Who else do they have on that roster there? I saw Isaiah Crawford, Stevens,
Devin Carter, Jordan Ford, Mason Jones, Isaac Jones, Boogie Ellis, Fardaz Amack, Kenan Blackshear, a guy I've never heard of named Lucas DeFeel, Jolual Ashuil, Hassan Ward, and Dane Goodwin. So they've got a pretty filled out roster. I think I know who you're going to go with as your guard.
Well, here's the thing, though. I'm afraid of Boogie Ellis and Mason Jones
taken away from Jordan Ford.
I'm afraid because look, let me tell you a quick story about Mason Jones, right? He's from the Dallas area. I want to say 2015, 2016, he was a chubby kid, and that's to like put it like nicely. And he had all the confidence in the world. And his brother went to Duke, and people was like, man, you're not that good, whatever, your brother. So he goes JUCO. Then he ends up at Arkansas. He gets himself into like unbelievable shape. And like that dude is a bucket.
Can shoot the ball.
He can shoot. He is a scorer. And whenever he gets his opportunity, because he does get them every now and again, he does get his opportunity in the NBA, he scores the ball. And he's one of those guys that's in a difficult situation because he's a volume scorer and he's not, unfortunately, good enough to get that shot. Those guys, like, I feel for him. And it's not necessarily him who has the same role, but Armani Brooks is another guy. Whenever he gets the opportunity, he shoots the ball extremely well, but they just haven't had the opportunity to stick. But if I'm playing against Boogie Ellis and Mason Jones, man, that's gonna be tough. And then if Devin Carter is locking up, then you got Isaiah Crawford out there locking up. Like, Kings are gonna be a very, very fun summer league team to beat. or to see. They got the big man from Baylor, Joe Luau Achul. I think that's how you say his name. And then they had Isaac Jones from, I believe, Washington State.
Yeah,
So
he's a fun player. He's got a crafty, undersized, big game where you feel like he used to be a bruiser and he's extended his game. Yeah, there's a couple players on this team that are also good college players, played in pro ball in Europe, and I think they'll help. Like Jordan Ford went to St. Mary's. He's
yes.
he's a Northern California kid, and he shoots the ball really well off screens. He's quick. I don't know how much he'll play with Boogie Ellis, Mason Jones, and of course, you want to play Devin Carter the most, and you want to see, is he more than just defensively oriented at the NBA level? So that'll be a stacked backcourt. But something tells me that team's going to play hard because they got a couple dudes that are just like ultimate hoopers that just want to be on the court.
And then Keenan Blackshear is good from Nevada too. He's a 6'5" point guard.
He's like a back to the basket point guard almost. I saw him play against Dayton in March Madness this year, and he loves the mid range.
Yeah, man. That's see, and this is what I'm saying. Back to Bronny, like, okay, eventually you're gonna draw the Kings, like, and all of those dudes can hoop, and for you got drafted, and Mason Jones was a Laker last year, I want to say.
Yeah, I think so.
So he's gonna come out there and attack whoever. So, but Bronny, he does his thing. Do you have the Spurs Summer League roster?
I can get that. Let's get that here. All right.
Maybe Stephon Castle he'll play in Vegas, but I'll let Leif go ahead and clarify.
I'll say so far he's listed as playing, but I don't know this for certain. Stephon Castle, David Duke Jr., Jamari Bouye, Jameer Nelson Jr., DJ Horn. That's a lot of guards right there. Now you got another USF WCC star in Johan Masalski, formerly of USF, CD Sissoko, Luke of Avdalovic, I don't know him, Darren Green Jr. from Florida State, Nathan Mensah, formerly of San Diego State, Riley Minix, Tyson Ward, Seth Milner Jr., Tyrese Radford. Oh, he might make the cut. He plays hard. Raekwon Gray, formerly of Florida State, and then Harrison Ingram of Stanford, and then North Carolina, who's a second-round pick this year. They
got a lot of guys, man.
Yeah, that's a loaded roster, and they got 5-6 guards, and honestly, the last one I said, Boots Radford, he's a guy that I can see making a team just out of energy. Like, he gets a bunch of rebounds, shoots it okay, puts pressure on the defense, gets to the rack all the time. And obviously, like when Castle plays, if it is in this classic or if it's in Vegas, that might push him further down. Same with Darren Green, who shoots at 41%, I want to say, at Florida State this past year. But there's a lot of players. And I'm the guy, obviously, Castle is going to draw the headlines, but I want to see how CD Sissoko develops, because he was a guy that I was pretty high on last year, and he fell down the draft. And I think he's got some skills that are needing to be honed, as he didn't shoot it well. No surprise there, but he had complementary skill sets with the ball, could push the pace, get under people's skin defensively, really moves his feet. And he's a big guy with big legs, kind of long arms. It's a rare build. I'm curious to see in the way he's developed, because I haven't really seen much of him play since last season, and I was high on him. So I'm curious to see if he kind of pushes that agenda of development. Shooting doesn't need to be excellent, but the rest of his game can thrive in the summer league.
Interesting. All right, so this last team, they're not on the roster, but the word got out on the internet streets that the Chinese national team will be participating in the California Classic as well as the Summer League Las Vegas. I don't know if they're scrimmaging in Las Vegas. It says scrimmaging, but they are playing in the California Classic. They do have scheduled games. So on opening night, Saturday night, they will play the Sacramento Kings team. And the one guy to look out for on that Chinese team, I don't know if you are familiar with him, Leif, Hansen Yang. He was rumored to be in the 2024 draft. He put his name out. He's in the 2025 draft. If you've been listening to me, listeners, for the past 7-8 months, you know I'm a big Hansen Yang fan. He is a very talented 18-year-old, 7'1" big. He has back to the basket game, like left shoulder, right shoulder. He can handle the ball a little bit, just enough. He can pass. He will turn that ball over. He's kind of a turnover machine, but you like the risk that he does take. And it'll be very, very interesting to see how he does out here in this summer league. And I want to look at the schedule because I really hope that they play against the Miami Heat, and it does not look like they play against the Heat. Dang. I want to see him go up against Kel'el Ware. But, yeah, Hanson Yang is legit, and he is the anchor of this team, and every single scout in the NBA will be there to watch him play. I had him as a top 20 pick this year, had he kept his name in the draft, but he didn't. And have you seen him play, Leif?
I've seen clips of him. I knew of him entering this year, mostly forgot about him throughout this process, focused on college players for the most part. Then you and I talked about him for a little bit about last week, and you filled me in on some gaps. I watched a few more highlights. So I like him, but I will admit I have not watched enough of him to fully understand what I'm getting out of Hanson Yang.
Look, all I'm going to say is at the under 18s last year, they had no answer for him. They being Alex Sarr, Dave Mara, when he had his buzz going to UCLA, he was too quick for a Dave Mara. He was way too strong for Sarr. I forget who the American big was that last year, but he was too little. China's guards are, kind of, they come and go. That's kind of where their like weaknesses usually is as far as like their roster. But I feel like Hanson Yang is, if he plays well, he's going to have a big buzz. But again, I don't want to say he's Şengün, but he almost has some Chris Kaman to his game where he's really, really crafty off of both shoulders, and he'll dunk on you. He'll do the head tap if he dunks on you. Like, he's been here before. So I'm a big fan. That's the player I'm most looking forward to. I want my Hanson Gang propaganda to carry on so we can take this nationwide. It feels like it's just me and my brother and a couple other people, but I want this team to pick up.
Well, I'm excited to see him and pay more attention, more than just kind of clips and synergy breakdowns that I've seen so far. I think it'll be very interesting to see what team of this is able to mesh the most, because obviously these teams they're exhibitions essentially, but sometimes the teams like that have these veteran guards like Devin Carter, for instance, and they play hard, can get other people involved, and it carries momentum. Like Podziemski is a guy that, like, this year, I don't think he'll play a ton, but because he's going to have experience, I wonder if he elevates the play of other players, then they have a chance to play for the Warriors later, because he's clearly a future piece for the Warriors. But is Guy Santos or is Reese Beekman going to push their way forward once Podziemski's minutes dwindle and they fill in? So those type of things are storylines I'm looking forward to. And I'll be there, like you said, in person in Salt Lake, which always has me excited, because usually there's a player or two I'm like, oh, that guy's a lot better than I realized. And they tend to play well in the actual league if you watch them play early and often. That happens in the preseason too. Like last year, Toumani Camara, I saw him the very first game of the preseason, and I was like, wow, that guy's going to stick for 10 years because he just plays so hard. And it's hard to differentiate it at times. And when you get into a combine setting where everyone's playing for their life, like he plays for their life every game. So I'm very excited to see it. I love watching the Summer League, and I probably spend too much time watching it, honestly.
Man, Summer League is fun, man. Especially like the first few days, because it's a buzz, and I don't think I'm going to be able to get to go this year. But even like watching it from home, like you can tell like some guys are doing way too much, and then you can tell a second year guy who's way too good for the setting. And then, there's always going to be just tons of overreactions just because it's Summer League, and it's really cool. Well, that concludes this episode. But before we go, let me just tell you one more thing about how Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. And now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today, now available on the free Fire TV channels app. Again, I am James. That is Leif. We will see you tomorrow. Thank you again for tuning in.